unique topic, cybersecurity behind enemy lines, and it's a critical and very crucial aspect for today's banking. And to present on this, I would like to call on stage with a big round of applause, Mr. Ankit Wasnik, Solution Architect from Qualys. A big round of applause to Ankit, who is going to present on cybersecurity behind enemy lines. Welcome on the stage, Ankit.
Hello everyone. Very good morning, and thank you very much for joining us today. So I'm going to be talking about cybersecurity behind enemy lines. I'm Ankit Wasnik, Solutions Architect at Qualys. Now, in this topic, I want to focus on three major things. First is cyber risk insurance, and cyber security automations. Now, why behind enemy lines? And for that, I want to give a reference. If we look at our defense, military defense, right? They have a strategy in place. They have manpower, they have weapons, they have resources deployed to secure our perimeter. And they secure it even before any attack happens, which is very contrary to the practice that we follow in our organizations. The approach that we take is basically to solve a problem. So whenever there is a problem, we are going to look for a solution for that problem, which is a reactive approach. On the contrary, we have to focus on a proactive approach. One of the customers in insurance sector of ours, they had a new CISO joined them, and when the CISO joined, the CISO realized that there is no proper vulnerability or threat management program in place. He realized that the reports that is coming are not accurate, number of misconfigurations, number of vulnerabilities being reported. There is no proper asset inventory in place as well. So CISO realized that he, in such situation, is bound to fail in the organization. But he had acquired the support of sponsors, executives, and then turned the overall cybersecurity in the organization around within a month's time. We also need to talk about digital transformation. In most of the organizations in today's day and time, there is a journey of digital transformation that is going on. And this digital transformation involves a lot of different techs, be it your on-prem servers, be it your cloud, public clouds, be it your containers. So all these different techs which are involved in your digital transformation journey, each of them acts as an attack vector that has to be proactively secured and not reactively. So cybersecurity has to be part of your core security for your digital transformation journey. Now, talking about the trends. So let's talk about cyber risk crisis. We spoke to a lot of different CISOs, and what we found out is that in most of the cases, CISOs need a way to quantify the risk, to measure the risk, to value it, to track it. And they already might have some solutions, tools in place to do that, or they might be doing it outside using some external algorithms. I was in Singapore a couple of weeks back, and I was talking to one of the largest banks over there, and they themselves had a process of doing risk calculation outside of a tool in a manual approach, which was effectively taking a lot of time for them to identify what has to be fixed. And then we were there to discuss how this can be automated in that journey. So identifying and quantifying risk, and it is not the CISO's responsibility. This question will come to CISO from board members as well, security leaders as well. And CISOs are going to be great influencers in the organization. They have great responsibility and pressure on them to manage and maintain the risk that is there in the organization. Now, if you talk about the risk score, we also have to take into account the sort of negative cost implications and negative reputation implication it is going to have in the organization. So we have to maintain and monitor the risk of overall organization. Now in this case, in this journey, you would more or less hear about terms like posture management. In today's day and time, you will hear about workload protection, identity management. All these terms in a way indicate that you are in a journey towards cloud. You are moving towards public cloud infrastructure like AWS, Azure, GCP. And that will introduce a new attack surface. And that has to be monitored, that has to be validated, checked, and you want to make sure that whatever security strategies that you have in place for your on-prem deployment your cloud deployments. You want to make sure that there are no siloed products in place. You don't want to deploy a new security solution just because you are moving towards a cloud journey. The strategies, the tools should follow along with that journey. And all of this, in a way, has to be done in a consolidated manner. Unless and until it is consolidated, you will not get a holistic view of what is the actual risk you're running. And this consolidation is going to be only possible when you have a platform-based approach. A platform-based approach that can end-to-end tell you what is the visibility of overall organization, overall assets that you're running, be it on-prem, on cloud, or work from home. And then from the visibility aspect, what is the detection and what is the remediation process along with that. Now these trends are in place because of certain challenges. And these challenges are there because, first of all, and which is very important, is limited asset visibility. Organizations have challenges in identifying what exactly they are running in their environment. And this is more and more true when you talk about the journey towards cloud, because the environment is so dynamic in nature that you would not know in a couple of hours a lot of instances or a lot of resources may spin up and may spin down. So the biggest challenge is the visibility challenge. And unless and until you don't know what you're running, you will not be able to secure it. The second problem is the siloed vulnerability solutions. There is a solution in place for scanning your on-prem network. There's a different solution that is in place for scanning your cloud environment, for your OT environment, for your mobile devices. As long as the solutions are working in a siloed manner, you will not be able to build a comprehensive security solution in a remediation program around it. It is also important to understand that nowadays weaponization is happening 2 times faster than the actual remediation. And misconfiguration plays a very big role into this. A lot of ransomware malwares are going to primarily exploit their misconfigurations as well. And the biggest challenge is the ability to identify what has to be fixed first. Right? Most of us will come across a report of vulnerability or list of patches which are missing, but how to identify which one has to be addressed first, which is my priority, but fixing which issue is helping going to reduce the highest amount of risk that is there for my organization. Now, a very quick look at the modern infrastructure that we have in place. As we can see, this is the typical setup that would be seen in our organizations as well. There are different on-prem setups. We have 2 data centers represented over here. The data centers are running databases, storage devices, network devices, virtual machines, bare metals. Then there is certain amount of presence on cloud as well. At times it can be a single cloud or it can be multi-cloud setup, AWS, Azure, GCP. And then in today's day and time, we also have a lot of our workforce still working from home, workstations, remote work from home devices, mobile workforce. For us, there has to be a consolidated way to do inventory of all of these devices from a single solution. We have to be able to identify and define what our assets are. Is a software or certificate an asset? A cloud or container that is running is an asset? What about supply chain? What about remote workers, inherited assets and shadow IT? Now with this modern IT infrastructure comes the modern attack surface. Broadly categorized into hardware, software and external. If we talk about hardware, it is important to know what are the weaknesses, what are the issues we have with our hardware. Going by an example, couple of months back, Samsung published couple of vulnerabilities which were affecting the Exynos chipset that they primarily use in their mobile devices and also in the camera module of these mobile devices, right? So on the hardware level, we need to make sure that we are monitoring what firmwares are running, whether they are vulnerable or not. If we talk about softwares, right? So not only we need to check what are the vulnerabilities with softwares, but we also need to identify whether these softwares that we are using are running end of life. If they are end of life, we are not going to have any more patches for them. Right? If we talk about OS and certificates, right? We need to be able to monitor certificates that have expired, about to expire. Again, going back to an example, a couple of months back, there was an outage in Microsoft Teams for some time. Now, that outage was because a certificate had expired. Now, you would imagine that a company like Microsoft would have all the resources in place to monitor outdated certificate. And again, talking about external attack surface, that's a different beast altogether. In most of the cases, in most of the organizations, whenever we talk to them, and we ask them, what do you think your approximate external attack surface looks like? What is the count of assets which are facing externally? And the number is always going to be lesser than what we actually go ahead and discover. We recently were doing a conversation, a sort of a POC with one of the largest credit card providers in the US. Their estimate was that they are having 100,000 devices which are externally facing. When we concluded the discovery, we found out that there were 300,000 actual devices facing externally. Right? So there was a gap of 200,000 devices that they were not even aware of. If you don't know, how will you secure that environment? Very important. And when we talk about external facing surface, nowadays in banks also we see that there are a lot of mergers, there are a lot of acquisitions that is happening. So it is not only the external attack surface that you need to monitor for your bank or organization, but also the group companies, subsidiaries, mergers, acquisitions, all of that. So that all falls under your umbrella now. Now, from the attack surface, I want to talk about the vulnerability threat landscape. Now, in the known universe of all the vulnerabilities which are there, 192,000 from 1998 to last year, we see it's a big count that we are dealing against. Now, but we don't have to worry because we have to focus on the count that is relevant to us, that is going to introduce the highest amount of risk. If you look in this count, 34% of these vulnerabilities have exploits available. 2.3% have been weaponized with this exploit code, and 0.54 are exploited by malware, 0.22 are exploited by threat actors, and 0.12 are exploited by ransomware. The highest amount of risk is introduced by less than 3% of vulnerabilities in your organization, which are the ones which have been weaponized with exploit code. Most of the organizations, the prioritization that happens uses CVSS scoring system, which is pretty basic, which is pretty vanilla to do prioritization. It will not take into account all the different attributing factors which are around the vulnerability. So a risk-based approach is required where you can identify which of these issues are related to denial of service, which are the issues are related to malwares or different threat actors. And with that you want to build your prioritization journey. If you look at the last year's journey itself, 25,000 vulnerabilities have been published in the last year alone. But again, if you come back, less than 1% of vulnerabilities are introducing the highest amount of risk in your organization. Now, these vulnerabilities which are introducing, which have been weaponized, if we look at the chat, if you look at the stats over here, 57.7% of these vulnerabilities that have been remediated, these have been remediated in around 30.6 days. This is the mean time to fix a vulnerability that has been weaponized. But in 19.5 days, once a vulnerability is published, it has been weaponized. So there is a gap of 11 days within which the exploitation is happening. The threat actors are exploiting these vulnerabilities. So this mean time to remediate has to come down. For different types of vulnerabilities related to malware, ransomware, threat actors, you would see different stats on how these are getting remediated within organizations. Now, typical vulnerability life cycle, let's assume that on day 1 the vulnerability is disclosed, on day 19 it has been weaponized, on day 27 it is added to CISA known exploited vulnerability knowledge base. Then CISA gives you 3 weeks to patch that. So as per CISA, you can patch it till the 48th day. Good thing is that it is being patched on an average by 38th day, but still that gives an 11 days of exploit period to threat actors. The top detected and weaponized vulnerabilities, these are the list of those vulnerabilities. All of them are around Chrome and Windows. Naturally, because Windows is the most used operating system globally and Chrome is the most used browser. But if you look at one of the stats over here that says MTTR, mean time to remediate, right? And these stats are coming from some of the information that we have from our internal reference. Mean time to remediate is still very good. It's on the lower side. For a couple of these vulnerabilities, we have remediated in 2 days to 10 days time. Now this lower time period for remediation is only possible when you have an automated way to remediate. You cannot do this with a manual approach. There has to be an approach where you simply can go ahead and say that, hey, if I detect a vulnerability that has been weaponized, just simply go ahead and deploy the patch. If I detect a patch which is related to Chrome, just go ahead and deploy that patch because I know patching a Chrome is not going to break anything for me. Right? So we need to have such automated patching programs and solutions in place. Automation is going to be the key. We can see with automated approach, we are patching Windows and Chrome in 17.4 days as against other products. And patch frequency, patching rate has also almost doubled as compared to the other products. In total, across all the patches which are getting deployed with an automated approach, you have patches getting deployed in 25.5 days as against a manual approach, which is 39.8 days. And your patch rate, how often you are deploying the patches, has also improved by 54.6%. Now remediation. Deploying the patch, who cares? Many times it happens that InfoSec teams, security teams would come out and say that, hey, you know what, we have done the detections, these are the list of patches and misconfigurations, and some other team, IT team or patching team would go ahead and work on it. It has to be a joint effort actually. Now, why these two examples over here? Now, what you see on the left side is NASA rover, Curiosity rover, that is on Mars right now collecting data. The NASA team sent a 2.7 MB file, which is a security patch for Mars rover, and spent millions of dollars to deploy that patch for a secure link. Interplanetary patch management we are doing. So I'm pretty sure we should be able to successfully do patching in our organizations, right? A combat helicopter in Australia, and this is as new as last 10 days, crashed because there was a security patch which was not deployed on the chopper. Millions of dollars in losses. And the same thing we see in our environment. We don't have that much reputation and cost in line, but still by deploying critical patches, we can reduce all this risk in our organizations. Mean time to detect, communicate, and growing mean time to remediate. Why do we have this growing mean time to remediate? On an average, if we look, these are the stats which are published by a research company. It takes 12 days for different teams to coordinate to decide which patch has to be deployed. Not to deploy the patch, but just to come to an understanding that which patch has to be deployed across all devices. Almost 65% of organizations say that they have difficulties in identifying which patch has to go first. They don't have a clear strategy to identifying what should be patched first. Microsoft reports that most of the customers are breached by a vulnerability for which patch has been released years back. Right? So all these stats are there. But to reduce that mean time to remediate, as I said, we need to have consolidation in place. We need to bring all our solutions together to have a holistic approach. A solution that should be able to give you end-to-end visibility, not only for a specific set of devices, but overall build inventory for you. It should be able to detect your vulnerabilities across all your devices, prioritize for which are the most riskiest vulnerabilities, and then effectively use that information to do automation, patch deployment, remediation as well. And this should happen on a continuous basis. And whatever, once the patches are deployed, if something is detected, it should be remediated immediately from there on. Remember that prevention is going to be key to reducing the digital risk. Speed is the key to outmaneuvering the adversaries. And to achieve that speed, we have to rely on automation that is going to define our success and failure criteria. Initial access brokers are going to focus on the vulnerabilities on the patches which are patched after 20 days, which are getting patched slower. For web applications, if we talk about that, misconfigurations are the biggest issues which are getting exploited. And for infrastructure misconfigurations, if we look in today's day and time, definitely we have to look at infrastructure on-premise techniques which are used. So there are brute force attacks, there are remote desktop protocols. So these are some of the top misconfigurations which are exploited by ransomware. But now if we talk about cloud, every alternate day or every couple of weeks you will see a news where a misconfiguration was there related to a security group or a S3 bucket which exposed a lot of private data of the organization to in general public, right? So these are some of the basic posture management checks that must be performed. Now, talking about the outcome-driven cybersecurity. Now, first of all, what is outcome-driven cybersecurity? Today, the approach we follow is a problem-driven cybersecurity. An example of this would be, let's say, if I buy a lock and if I lock my house, right, the door of my house, So I am solving a problem there by, locking that particular door. But the outcome of that is that the thieves who are there will not be able to get into my house to steal anything. So we have to focus on an outcome-driven approach, which should be measurable, which should be quantifiable. Our customers follow this approach, and several of those customers, we can see their stats, they were able to reduce the active vulnerabilities by 85%. Some of the customers reduced their vulnerability detection time by 90%. A customer reduced remediation time by 500% from 24 hours to 4 hours. So these are the benefits of using an outcome-driven cybersecurity program. And the last topic that I want to talk about is the cyber risk insurance. Now, today if I go to take a health insurance, the questions that will come to me is what is your age? What are your habits? Do you drink? Do you smoke? And based on that, a premium will come out. Naturally, if I don't drink, I don't smoke, that premium is going to reduce, because now the premium is going to be based on the residual risk that is there. From an organization point of view also, based on what security tools and solutions that you have implemented, you should be able to quantify what risk you have fixed, you have taken care of, and what is the residual risk, and you should only pay the premium or for the residual risk that remains in the organization. We have tie-up with Cowbell, but nonetheless, there are options where you can simply quantify this data using the solution that you have in place. In Qualys, we have risk-based vulnerability management, where we can identify, we can measure the risk which is there that you have fixed and that you need to take care of. And based on that, you can have a premium defined only for, and you should pay for only the residual risk. What your money is saved, you should then put back that again into your cybersecurity program to improve it. I think that's all from my side. My time is over. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Ankit, for that wonderful presentation on cybersecurity behind enemy lines. In the interest of the time, we can take one quick question from the floor. And before we open the floor to the question, I would like to tell you that Ankit and the entire team of Qualys is available throughout the day today and tomorrow. Please do visit the wonderful booth set up by Qualys right in the pre-conference area to know more about their products and offerings. And I'm very sure that Ankit and the team would be very happy to address all of your queries and concerns when it comes to cybersecurity. So any question, please raise your hand, and please do introduce your organization, and request you to keep the question brief. Do we have any questions from the floor? All right then. So, moving ahead, I would now like to call on stage Mr. Bajrangi, Deputy General Manager IT from Bank of Maharashtra, to kindly do the honors of felicitating our wonderful presenter, Mr. Ankit Wasnik, Solutions Architect from Qualys. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Ankit Wasnik, Solutions Architect from Qualys, for that wonderful presentation on cybersecurity behind enemy lines.